Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. We are going to actually have a presentation working today. And since you can see me up there, we're going to have my posse here is going to parade in back of me, just in case you get bored with what's on the screen, okay? It's up to them. Have at it. Keep having fun, but be quiet. Well, dang. All righty. So, composing and combining your handmade fabrics. It's about putting stuff together, whether you've got a whole pile of fabrics and scraps and bits that you'd like to combine to put into a single garment, or maybe you have a special piece of fabric from a friend. You heard Margaret's story. This is a lot of how I do it. And I started doing these kinds of things about over 20 years ago when I asked a friend to share my craft fair booth. And we weave very different fabrics. And she started giving me just the tail ends of her scarf boards. They're parading.
Okay.
All righty. So let's start downstairs here in my studio. And there we are. This doesn't feel like the right presentation. I'm sorry. Okay, so here we are downstairs in the studio. This is the big sewing machine, just right inside the door. You can see a serger kind of at the back of the other table. Come on. And like all of us, we've got little bits that we find continuously inspiring. This little frame piece is from a friend, a quilter in Birmingham, Alabama, and it makes me happy. So it's above the table, right next to the sewing machine. Here's the heart of it. My sewing table, the big cutting table. You can see the humongous stash, the 4 piles of bolts of my handwoven fabric. Towards the left, there's the buttons, linings, interfacings, small tools, my business cards, stashes. So the numbers for those who like to have them, the sewing machine is a Bernina tack sew, 950. I use Burnett sergers. There's a 4x6 foot mega mat on the cutting table. I use a hot steam iron, gravity feed water on a vintage ironing board because the ironing board makes me happy. Anti-fatigue mats because I'm 66 and my knees hurt. Lots of scissors. Everywhere I might need to pick up a pair of scissors, there's one already there, so I don't have to waste time. My how you say, support stash. Yarn. This is about 20% of it. I weave yardage and then cut and sew garments. All right. So when you're combining fabrics, is there a reason to do this, to design a garment like this? Are you wanting to use both sides of a reversible fabric? This was one of the reasons that I started working in some of these organizations of colors, so to speak. Almost all the fabric I've woven for about 25 years is block twill, meaning it's reversible. I've got pattern happening on both sides. I love mixing them up, combining them. Or do you not have enough? Shh. Yo, peanut gallery. Do you not have enough of any single fabric? Because I will tell you, every single new idea I come up with for myself, for my business, is because I run out of fabric. No question. Got to come up with something else. Oh, look at that. It looks really good with that. Oh, look at that rag fabric. Look at how it picks that turquoise rag fabric and red. Oh, they both have black. It'll be perfect. It was a really cute jacket. Nice woman who bought that jacket. So, do you have one precious piece of fabric that you really want to focus? Build a garment around that piece. options and possibilities. Is there a theme for this garment? Is there a specific fashion show, perchance, or an exhibition? The coat on the right I made a number of years ago, and it was for I don't remember, it was an exhibition piece, and it combined several fabrics from my business partner, Neil Howard, also a weaver working in silk. She dies. And I named it Rhododendron Spring. The piece on the left, I just made last month for the Convergence Fashion Show application. And the theme for that one, I believe, Seasons of the Smokies, that fashion show. This is Winter Moonlight. Or is this reason for putting these fabrics together strictly color play? I do that a lot. Just, I have a pile of fabrics and they might have a really similar color theme running through them, or one fabric has just one little accent thread that picks up, vibrates with another piece of fabric. Combine them. So another question, how does your brain work? Are you inspired? Do you need to work very tight? Are you working on a table, maybe a pattern that has a lot of small pieces? The woman on the left, actually both of these women were in a sewing workshop in St. Paul in 17. And the woman on the left had this collection of very beautiful small pieces of Japanese ikats that she had collected over the years in her travels. And she really, really wanted to combine them. So she just very carefully sat with her pattern pieces and composed, because she had patterns of various sizes and complication. So she needed to decide, you could throw them all up in the air and design by happenstance. She needed to compose everything very carefully. Cool. And she did. The woman on the right was literally composing, cutting a little bit here. That's perfect. No, maybe if I move the blue over here. Very, very direct. And that's how I work generally, is on my cutting table. Here I am moving some fabrics around, some small pieces, the purple at the top with the blocks, the black on the left. Those are my fabrics. The piece in the front, the stripe, the purple and turquoise, you can see there's some gradient moving through there, because that's my friend Neil's fabric. She space dyes all of her warps before they go on the loom. I'm auditioning some purple raw silk I happen to have for piping for this particular coat. So here I have cut all the pieces, and I'm in the process of pinning them together. I have designed the main panels for what I call a celebration coat, which is derived from the folkwear Turkish coat, which many of you have probably used before. It's gone through several iterations, but it's a style that I tend to go to for exhibition pieces. This one was for a special order with a woman I've never met. She emailed after my website came up, said she'd had a really good time going through my website, and did I think I could possibly consult by telephone and email, even though she was never coming to North Carolina and she'd never felt my fabrics or seen my garments in person. And we did. We managed to do it. So this is one of three choices I gave her, was this particular colorway with these fabrics. And I ended up making all three coats because she just couldn't make up her mind from the little sample packets that I sent her. So in this instance, I started with the smallest amount of fabric I had, which was Neil's stripy stuff. I always like to have fabric, special fabric, on the back and also on at least one of the fronts, so you look really, really good coming and going. And these are the coat. That is the coat that I made. It's pretty good looking. And she was really happy. So I guess I just said that. I start with the smallest quantity first. This is actually a piece of the same piece from the same pattern that I cut out today with the class this afternoon. In this instance, I cut out the pieces parts of the back of the shirt first. And then I cut out the left front, which was just solid dark green, and then made the right front last. And you can see I've got this whole kind of big space area there on the paper that needed to be filled in. And it took about 3 pieces of this wool to do it, but that's okay. So there we are in class, working with exactly the same pattern. This is after lunch. I had plenty of energy. So this is a pile of fabrics that I used, that I cut up today. And I made it a joint effort, and everyone was extremely helpful. And we laughed a lot. And they made me laugh a lot. So here I'm kind of ooching along, but I am literally designing on the table, just putting fabrics together. And it's like, okay, we'll set this scrap aside because it's enough for a sleeve. We'll set this scrap aside because it's enough for most of a sleeve, but maybe not. Oh, rats, we forgot this little patch. So we better put a little bit of that there so it relates to the rest. That kind of thing. I was told everybody learned a lot. It was fun. And this is the same thing. I believe in 16. All of these are my friend Neil's scraps. When she started doing garments back in 04 or 05, I do her sewing, which means I have all the scraps. And here I am sorting them into piles according to color intensity. Some of them had some black, some of them did not. And it was just playing and composing. For this coat, I envisioned mostly reds on the right front, kind of transitioning from the brightest ones, the right front, close to the face, transitioning around, spiraling around the body into black. So this piece that's on the table, pardon me, this is the first of these coats that I designed, that I made. And so this is before I even made a long version of the paper pattern. So I've got the short jacket pattern laid out on the black and my rulers right there. That's how I do these things. Very direct, how my brain works. That's the coat. This is the back of the finished coat. And on the left side of the screen, you can see the pattern piece as I've composed that color movement around the body. There it is. And look at it on a model. When our handmade garments are on a body and they are in motion, that's the finest and the best collaboration of all.
Okay.
And Kathy is showing a paper coat.
In motion.
In motion.
Run, Kathy. I want to see that.
All right.
This is run away.
So that was all working directly or working on a table. Sometimes it is just easier to see what's going on a vertical surface. So this was a part of that same workshop in St. Paul. This is the Textile Center. And they had an entire bulletin board design wall. It was great. So Kathy, the woman on the right, was cutting pieces on the table in front while she was looking at all of her parts pinned up on the wall, how she chose to design her piece. This was a combination of nuno-felt and some commercial fabrics. Pretty cool. You might want to design directly on a dressmaker's mannequin. This was another sewing workshop where a woman was basically had her pattern worked out. She sewed the vest body, but I helped her design this asymmetrical collar. and she really needed to see how it was going to work. And she did, and she was very happy. Or work directly on the body. So this lady is Pam Howard, who was the artist in residence in weaving and a couple of other topics at John C. Campbell Folk School for, I think, 20 years. She's just retired. So about 10 years ago, we had started talking about collaborating, or actually, my making a jacket for her using some of her fabrics. Cool. Always fun to start with somebody else's choices. So earlier, I had taken a number of measurements and I generated this extra large pattern. And the next time I went to the folk school, Pam came over and I took some more measurements, decided what needed to happen to change this to make it her fit. Needed to be a little longer, according to the middle of the middle picture. Pam needed some more length in the front to make it all the way down to the full length. One arm was longer than the other. Didn't know that until we tried this piece on. All right. And then this is Pam's handwoven fabric. So after we did the pattern stuff, then we went back and we just, must have been 15 yards of this very colorful fabric. And the warp she had dyed many years before. It was 3, I believe, 10-inch wide sections that she put on the loom at the same time and shifting everything so that the colors happened at different times. And it was very fun. We figured out what color she wanted framing her face. And then we had to figure out how not to get yellow going right across the bust line. That was fun. And so I made notes and we put pins here and there and we figured it out. And I'm sorry, I don't have a picture of the final jacket because boy, was she happy. So there may be some combination of working on the table, working on the wall, working on the person that works for you. Whether you're making this garment for yourself or for someone else. So in this instance, just a for instance, because I don't share this one very often, this was also in 16 when I did a collaborative exhibition. I asked 8 friends who are members of the same organization as I am to collaborate with me, to send me parts that I could build a garment around. This is a woman who is not a weaver. She does a variety of things, one of which is just really interesting applique. So the pieces, the black and white pieces with all that colorful stuff happening, that was actually linen that she had hand dyed and cut out these shapes and then done very tight satin stitch. So they were appliqued onto this background black and white linen with extra stitching. This just wonderful, wonderful work. And I got to play with it and build a coat around it. So I just happened to have black linen and white linen in my studio, but better than that, I had some bright orange linen with which to make piping and the collar. So that's the coat. It was pretty fun. And of course, I put in bright turquoise lining. And someday, exactly the right person's going to come along and get this coat. So, further thoughts on this whole designing thing, you can find from other places as well, like fashion and pattern design. There's lots of general principles for figuring out how to put stuff together.
It's bizarre.
Bizarre?
Sorry.
Mute that phone, thank you very much. Sorry, the posse's getting restless. All righty, quilting design. I've been finding more and more of you front range folks are just incredibly talented, multi-fiber medium people. I love it. So quilting design, you know, there's principles that you use when you're building your quilts. And many of them transfer over into garment sewing and design. Color theory, same thing. It's color, it's playing. So accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative, right? Anybody know the tune to that one? I'm just positive it's a song. So we know an accent color or a V-neck is going to flatter the face. Build that into your garment. There on the left, a strong vertical line in the center. There she is, smiley. Atta girl.
You wanted a V-neck. Here we
Yes,
are.
there it is. It's very nice. A strong vertical line in the center. It doesn't necessarily need to be a band. Check this out. Browns, very nice. See this? This is patterned fabric as the band in the front. Now this is brown on brown, but it's still a vertical line leading up to the face. Yep, in the back. All right. So in the instance of the shirt on the right, that's the same shirt that I am wearing. And it's a pretty subtle difference. And if it were buttoned shut, there's still a vertical line. The difference between the right and the left color, it's a vertical line. And even strong horizontal lines or blocks like this on the right, the light colored on the top and the brilliant blue on the bottom, one would think, oh, bright blue across the bum. Well, we don't want to draw attention there. However, with those strong verticals of the black sides, it's contained. All right, feast your eyes for a sec. Yes, it is just water for a while. So, contained by verticals. The piece on the left, those are incredible fabrics, basically some scraps from Catherine Ellis. And so they are just really yummy in person. They are her samples, her practice pieces from cross weaving, cross dyeing. Cotton and wool are in both warp and weft. And so when they were dyed in rhubarb and or light black walnut, then the shibori threads, there it is, it's the same coat. So the shibori threads were drawn up. It was those pieces were over dyed in indigo, but they weren't very big. But combined with some of my handwoven fabric, some piping I made, it just happened to be dull gold silk. God. But same thing, horizontal panels contained with verticals. Flattering. People see first those verticals. Color blocks or continuous pattern can wrap around the body in a garment. Think about those sumptuous pictures of Japanese kimono, right? That have panels, that have landscapes going completely around. The piece on the picture on the right is showing 3 panels for a long celebration coat. Nice one, huh? So and so those panels are actually quilted fracture landscape from Murray Johnston. She designed it, she sent me the panels. Eventually I sewed them into a coat with lots of black outlines around them, side panels, sleeves, etc. Incredible coat. The piece on the left is that, what do I call that? Winter Moonlight? The Winter Moonlight coat. It has a small hood, it's really nice. But same thing, the color movement working around that coat. I was thinking in terms of snow on hills, snow on mountains, and full moon shining down and shining on that snow. And those are the panels of that exact coat laid out in order. So there's the black or the back laid out with the two side panels and the two fronts on the outside of that. Color movement. Or you might choose one accent color to move the eye around a garment. Always making sure there's those verticals. An accent color. Speaking of accent colors, it was interesting when I was putting this presentation together and just trying to pull these thoughts together to share with you. It occurred to me that of the last piece or the last set of images and this one, and I think the next one also, my accent color is always orange. I don't know why. It is. It makes colors pop. That's a quilting thing. At least that's how I think of it. So this particular coat, so you know how Catherine Ellis wrote the book, Unwoven Shibori, that we all have. And the first one she wrote, all of those wonderful samples were woven in cotton and dyed in fiber reactive. You ever wonder what happened to all those samples? When she redid the book in all natural dyes, well, a bunch of them came to my house. And that's what this chevron shaped fabric is, or where it's from. And I built the rest of the coat around it. A couple of Neil's fabrics, several of my fabrics, and some olive wide wale corduroy piping to pull it together. There you go, accent, orange, right there. So this coat was built around this felted panel. And the small matching panel on the front, so you look good coming as well as going. The piping on this piece is a dark orange red. Why would one have that in the studio? It was just, this is a really fun coat. So here we are back in the workshop, and this happened before lunch. I chattered at them for a while, and then everybody got to present their fabrics, the things that they were thinking about combining, and their pattern and what their thoughts were to the whole group. So we all knew where we were coming from. And this could be a little nerve-wracking. However, everybody's in the same boat. We had lots of really gorgeous fabrics. We have lots of really cool ideas. And there's going to be some pretty cool, hip and groovy stuff coming out of there in the next 2 days. We're thinking, I don't know. What do you think about that? This is Kathy. I can make the same faces. So this was some lining fabric that she had. It's like, oh my God, you're going to use that for lining? Well, why not use that for lining? Know that the inside of your garment is absolutely gorgeous, and you might be the only one who ever gets to see it, but that's okay. It's yours. And BA just cracked us all up. Oh my God. So it's just a GAMP. Will it be a clown suit? Well, no. We'll all make sure it's not a clown suit, okay? What compositional adventures await your stash? You guys have a little brain movement going? I hope so. Thanks, everybody. Now get out those stashes and get busy. Come visit us. See what's going on. Thank you.
Questions and answers?
Oh, questions and answers?
If you have a question, why don't you raise your hand and unmute and ask Liz. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So I am a relatively beginning weaver. I've been weaving for 5 or 6 years. And I don't have much of a stash. So what do? Do you weave a stash? Do you, uh,
Oh, honey.
yeah.
Okay. So some of the things that I say, I think in a couple of other presentations, because, you know, I split up my whole sewing workshop gig into like 3 or 4 topics, but it's all the same information. I just kind of make sure I cover the special topic, but it's all the same stuff. So you don't have a stash. I bet you have friends who do. I bet you have friends who have a stash, an old tablecloth, or extra scarves that you've woven, or maybe your first scarves that you wove that you really weren't terribly happy with, so you're not really attached to them anyway. Dish towels. Yeah, and there's just fabric in our lives that you can start with, like the husband's old ties. That's not really big pieces of fabric. An old tablecloth is great. You can start with sheets, but that's pretty darn boring. Got an old blanket, thin blanket, thick blanket. You got friends with stashes. You know, people who just keep saying, "Oh, I've got to clean my closet out." Well, there you go. Get on that list.
Thrift stores.
Thrift stores, yes.
Art
Thrift stores are
parts.
great.
Art art parts.
Art Mart,
Art parts.
Park. It's a store? Well, there you go. Art Park. Never heard of it, but there you go.
So everything does not, I'm gonna put have to in quotes, be hand woven.
No, no,
Oh,
just practice, learn, practice, okay? And have fun with it. And that's actually a really good way to start, is finding fabrics to which you're not terribly attached, so that you don't get so bound up in the preciousness that you're afraid to cut it, okay? Most of the time, that's how I have to start my workshops, is say, that fabric is not screaming. It's okay to cut it up. It's okay. In fact, in my beginning document that I send everyone, you want to practice stitching on your handwoven. Find a couple of old scarves that you're tired of and just practice long straight seams. And then practice ripping them out, so you're not afraid of that either. Okay? Fabrics to use. Thrift stores are great. Any other questions?
It's Audrey. I have a question. Could you talk a little bit about each step of the process and approximately how much time that takes you and
No.
how you go through that?
I can't. I'm sorry. Because every, you mean the sewing or the composing, playing, doing?
Each component, how long, just on the average or worst case, best case?
No, sorry. I do this full time. I'm a full-time craftsman.
Mm-hmm.
And I figure when I'm awake, I'm working.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it depends on the time of year, depends on what I need to have going on in the studio, but no, honey, I can't do that. And that's part of that is the way I choose to work.
Okay.
I don't want to quantify it. Today, cutting out that little box top with a committee of 10 students, we worked 3 hours composing and playing with all of these, with, what did I have, 4 fabrics? 4 fabrics and 1 special little patch and 1 short sleeved little top. About 3 hours.
Okay.
Now that's nothing about the further stuff. This is the first step. Okay, the first step is putting things together. And sometimes that's the most fun part. Depends on how your brain works. I found early on, thinking about my previous life as a potter, things that became important to me the longer I worked with my hands. That's the most important thing. The thing I do in my life is work with my hands on materials, whether it was in clay or on the fibers, whether it's weaving or sewing. What's most important to me is making something functional that's going to last, that makes people happy to wear, to have it be a part of their lives. Functional is important to me. It's also important to me that it be well crafted enough that it is going to last a long time. That a person feels happy wearing my work. It's also an important part of what I do to assemble parts. And that was interesting to think about. I really enjoyed putting parts together as a potter. And when I realized that when I decided that I was going to give weaving a shot full time and realized I wanted to weave yardage of all things, because I was already a production person, that's when I realized I was really, really glad I knew how to sew. And I could turn my two-dimensional design, flat chunks of fabric, into 3D design to go around a body. And as I mentioned, there's all of those disparate little design issues that come from they're overlapping. You know, the same attitude of composing, putting vertical lines on a body to be more flattering as opposed to horizontal lines to make us feel wide. Those kinds of things, color, dominance and recession. Brighter colors are going to move forward. Lighter colors are going to move forward. Darker colors are going to recede. Putting dark panels along the sides of a garment vertically to make the whole garment, and therefore the person in it, slimmer looking. Have I gotten far enough away from that question I couldn't answer?
It's a great discussion. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had two questions. This is Rosie. One, you mentioned the Turkish coat. Is this that pattern you were?
I can't see you.
Oh really? Oh, okay. I guess I don't.
Liz, if you
Hang on. Yeah.
unshare your screen and then we can see everybody.
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Oh,
right, but
it
then
is
we're
escape.
for a picture.
There we go. Getting there.
Oh,
Ah,
hi.
where's Rosie? I
I
still don't see Rosie.
I'll wave. Woo. I see me, but off in the corner there. There.
Ah, there you are. Yes, ma'am. That is
Okay,
the
so a lot of.
folkwear Turkish coat.
All right. So a lot of the coats that you exhibited, were they a variation of this pattern?
Yes.
Okay.
A friend of mine has been using that pattern for many years, and she already did some adaptation, some simplification of the original traditional pattern. Okay. She simplified it. She combined some things, and it made it a little more appropriate for handwoven.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay. Yeah.
And then my second question was, do you ever use that really thin double-sided interfacing when you're using smaller scraps for?
Do I use interfacing, ladies? Okay, I know what you mean. No, I don't use that kind of interfacing. Stuff that like sticks two layers together.
Yeah.
No. What I do use a lot of, and that's why the posse is laughing, because fusible interfacing is my friend. And I introduce all of my students to fusible interfacing as a means of stabilizing our handwoven fabrics, providing some structure, particularly around the shoulders, whether in the form of facings, generally in the form of facings, and particularly if a garment is going to be lined. It needs to be stabilized so that it doesn't, because our handwoven fabric is soft. And many of them, most are going to move. They're going to continue to move to sag to relax. Relaxing is a really nice way to put it. Much better than sagging. So our fabrics are going to grow some. And we need to be able to get away from that, oh dear, isn't that a sweet garment you made, your homemade garment? You made the fabric too, isn't that sweet? As opposed to, wow, you made that? No sagging. Okay?
What is your choice of interfacing, if you don't mind me?
I don't mind. Tricot, fusible interfacing is what I use in, how you say, front facings, front and back, in collars, in cuffs, around hems. When it is a lined garment, I use a lot of a weft insertion type fusible interfacing and completely fuse the body of the garment. It is a softer interfacing, and yes, you lose about 1/3 to half of the hand of your hand-woven fabric. I figure it's a fair trade for knowing it's not going to sag over its lining.
Definitely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
I have a question. This is Nicole. Hello.
Oh,
It's just me. My
Okay.
question is, I am a brand new, I am new to sewing, and what would you suggest would be something good to start with for someone who is a beginner?
I'm not being a smartass. Take a class.
Yeah, okay.
Take a class.
Okay.
Because you're going to learn the basics. And I'm just a really fast home sewer. There are things that I do, and my students will tell you, after I'm gone, I'm sure, that I've got a number of tips for handling hand-woven fabrics that are a little bit beyond, and not beyond in terms of difficulty by any means. It's just a matter of keeping some things in mind working with hand-woven. Take a class, sew a lot.
Okay.
Okay, that's the best thing I can say. Sew a lot.
Okay. Great.
Okay,
Thanks.
you're welcome. Welcome to our world. Anybody else?
I have a question, or maybe it's a comment in the form of a question.
Mhm.
I was thinking about the question that you had about how long does it take you to make something? And something that I've heard, and maybe you can comment on if this is true or not true for you. The answer is my whole life. How long did it take you to make that piece? My whole life. Like all the learning that you do along the way
Goes into it.
yeah. I don't know.
So when I was a potter, the big dogs used to use that line a lot. The weaving and the sewing that I've done. Oh yeah, I learned to sew in the 60s, when in grade school. Mom sewed a lot and Dad taught himself to sew. And both my sisters who were younger, we all sewed. We all made stuff. And it's a skill that is, I mentioned before, the 2D to 3D. I'm getting around to your question. And yeah, it is kind of all one's life, almost. And it kind of feeds into attitudes towards putting things together. Okay. And when you sew a lot, sew garments, you become accustomed to the things that one must do to fabric to make it fit around a body. The body has weird lumps, right? And these things that stick out on the top and on the bottom. And there's like this head up here. And you want to have things be flattering, to fit, to be comfortable. So you just learn how to move the fabric around and how to use darts and how to use some shaping. And it doesn't take a whole lot of shaping with our handwoven fabric because it's so yummy and it's soft. Of course, the flip side of that is it's also can be really bulky. So you learn how to deal with all of those things. And so as far as all my life, I think the all my life part is using the hands, that material in the hands, and just figuring out what it is that you want to do with it. I think I said earlier, when I'm awake, I'm working. There is always something to be done. The vast majority of the weaving that I do, 3 or 4 months out of the year, in the spring, I switch over to cut and sew and doing some shows and doing some teaching. That's how my life has evolved. All of my time is mine. I live by myself and I work by myself. And I have a crabby cat who wouldn't come downstairs even if I asked her to. So, how did that come out? Where do I go from here? So okay, so the weaving that I do primarily, and most of the sewing, it's rote, okay? That means I'm doing the same thing over and over and over. And that's something that began when I was a production potter. I was making the same forms over and over. And of course, one is always concerned with efficiency because of time concerns. This was back in the Midwest, so I didn't have to worry like you guys would here about stuff drying out like in seconds, which is an interesting thing to think about. But it's rote, which means that my brain has got other stuff going on at the same time. Yes, I'm so glad you tried that piece on because you are tall. It's exquisite. Thank you so much. She'll be right. We're about to dress up the background here, okay? So, yes. This is Jan. We're really glad she joined us. Turn around, please. Check this out. See this? Yeah. Isn't that nice? This is a piece of Neil's fabric. And I just happen to have exactly the right turquoise with some tone on tone rectangles scattered here and there, reflecting those. Okay, so back to the rote part. So rote means my brain is moving along in a parallel track, but it doesn't have to be involved with what's going on. When I'm weaving, my hands and my eyes are engaged to make sure I'm not making boo-boos, right? But I have a book on an ebook on all the time. Otherwise, I'd be walking away. I get distracted by the ding on the computer, thinking, oh, I really should go pet the cat for a while. Not efficient. So I run books on CD or on the iPad all the time. And the same thing when I'm sewing. Because I've been working with these same patterns for a long, long time, when I'm actually composing a new garment or a new combination of fabrics, I can only play the radio because I got to make sure I do a right front and a left front. So it's kind of being aware of how your brain works and what you need to do. Like the lady earlier, sometimes you just, if your brain needs to know that it's only going to take this long to get this accomplished, you practice that puppy until you get to that time constraint covered. I've had the luxury, I like to think, of course, that's why I work so many hours, because I don't want the time constraints as much as possible. I don't want to deal with them. Is that enough babble? Did I answer the question?
Amy's nodding.
Okay, cool.
Does anyone else have a question for Liz? Anybody? Feel free to chime in. But you have to unmute first. Well,
Can I say something?
Of course you may. Here's BA who's in the class.
So if you possibly can, you especially, Rosie, because of your question, you should come and see exactly what she is using for her facings, interfacing and stuff. And she will show you an early project of hers where she had sag because she did not put facings. She didn't use any of the fusible on it. And it is really interesting. In fact, some of the posse got bored. And so we were comparing things and techniques and stuff that we liked and didn't like. And if you came, you could see this stuff in person and get an idea of what you might like to do. And then the next time Liz comes to town, you can take the class. And it's so far ahead of where we were.
Oh, so two things. Let me run a little.
Summarize.
No, let me run a little commercial there. Since BA said, next time Liz comes to town, don't wait 10 years again, okay? I was here 10 years ago doing this class. All right.
Oh, yeah.
So, oh yeah, so that's the other half of the commercial. I'll be doing a sewing workshop in Denver for the Rocky Mountain Guild next week. They only have 6. There's room for more. So the other thing is, that was very gracious of BA because we got 10 ladies who paid to be in this class, and she just invited you to come and ask me questions. I say, come and ask them questions.
Yeah.
And see how much they retain of what I babbled at them today.
No, actually, it's a really good point because a lot of times she says, well, what would you do when she was piecing things together? And we talked about ideas and stuff. And so you can come and look at what we're doing and say, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Or it really, it is very, very creative.
What she said.
I'm not even a weaver and I would come to the class. Absolutely.
We're showing each other a really good time.
Yeah.
I'm so glad.
Anybody else have questions?
Are you gonna be at Convergence?
Oh yeah, another commercial. So,
Commercial away.
oh yeah, Convergence is in Knoxville, Tennessee, Eastern Tennessee. It's about 100 miles from where I live in North Carolina. So yes, my booth buddy Neil Howard and I will be vendors. So come see us in the marketplace. All right. So as many garments as I managed to stuff in my poor little Subaru wagon to get here to Colorado, I'll have about double that in the booth. Okay? So y'all come.
Unless you're driving a
I
Kia.
practice that part. Pardon me?
Unless you're driving a Kia.
Well, who was that? Somebody who knows my Subaru broke?
That would be Paula. That's Paula yakking at you.
Oh, Paula. Hi, honey. How'd it go today?
That's fine.
Okay. Paula's taking care of my broken Subaru, okay? So I have her Kia, which is kind of nice. Everything is inside, no problem. No cottonwood trees have broken off, have like broken off and hit it yet. I might move it. Anyway. You brought it up. Anybody else?
Are you at Kathy's house right now? Or-
No. We decided that we would not, what's that word? We would not tempt fate. So we are actually in Kathy's former real estate office. And it still took a friggin' long time to get connected to this joint, but we did with the help of 2 real estate people. Which we thoroughly appreciate. It's like, well, try this. Caps, lowercase, I don't know. You got the numbers right?
Well, we're so
It's
glad
fine.
that you connected. Yay.
Yeah, it's all right. So I'm not real sure what we'll do. Yesterday morning's presentation is rescheduled. We will do it probably, well, we will be doing it Friday morning to be recorded. Okay, so you guys will have the other presentation. Yes, this one is recorded. So the one on Friday morning will be the one that sort of fell apart yesterday morning. And that will be about putting together runway worthy garments from the makers. Okay.
That's exciting.
Very exciting. Mhm.
Great.
Okay.
All right. Are there any final questions for Liz? If not, I'll go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you so much, Liz. This was
You're
such a
welcome.
pleasure to have you.